Welcome to this video on Mapp vs. Ohio, a landmark case discussed in the World Affairs Council of Austin mock trials. Mapp vs. Ohio began in 1957 in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. This state criminal prosecution focused on Dalry Mapp's possession of allegedly obscene materials. The factual background reveals that police forcibly entered Mapp's home without a valid warrant looking for a bombing suspect. They found obscene materials instead. Mapp was arrested and charged, raising a conflict between police power, privacy, and illegally obtained evidence. The case involved several key facts. The search was a pretext after a bomb threat tip. Police found so-called obscene materials, and there was considerable doubt about the existence of a valid warrant. This case ultimately forced a decision on whether the Fourth Amendment's exclusionary rule applied to the states via the 14th Amendment. Regarding procedural posture, the trial judge refused to consider the legality of the search, and Mapp was found guilty. After appeals were affirmed in Ohio, Mapp appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Mapp's theory of the case argued that the police violated the Fourth Amendment by entering without a valid warrant. The search was unreasonable and violent, and the illegally obtained evidence should be excluded. They argued the obscenity charge was a pretext. The state of Ohio argued that the materials were illegal under state law. The manner of obtaining the evidence was irrelevant under existing state precedent, and they claimed police acted in good faith. Dalry Mapp's defense would rely on witnesses like herself and her daughter to detail the police misconduct. Experts on handwriting and police procedure would challenge the warrant and standard of conduct, while a character witness would counter state prejudice. The defense's core arguments included the primacy of the warrant clause, the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, and the sanctity of the home. They emphasized the lack of exigent circumstances and warned of the dangers of a slippery slope if police misconduct were rewarded. The exclusionary rule, established in federal cases, prevents the use of illegally obtained evidence. Mapp vs. Ohio incorporated this federal rule, mandating its use in all state court proceedings, a doctrine that remains highly debated. Dalry Mapp herself is the central defense witness. Her testimony details the police's warrantless, forced entry, and the aggressive search. She personalizes the violation of the Fourth Amendment for the jury. Barbara Mapp Carter, Dalry's daughter, was a witness to the chaotic search. Her testimony would highlight the traumatizing nature of the police action and appeal to the jury's sense of domestic privacy. Handwriting expert testimony would challenge the alleged search warrant's validity by focusing on technical flaws or missing signatures. This technical attack aims to prove the search was unlawful from its inception. A police procedure expert, likely a former officer, would establish standards for warrant requirements and scope. This contrasts the police's actions with legal norms, framing the search as a reckless deviation from the rules. Handwriting expert Dr. Leonard J. Halperin would challenge the alleged warrant's validity. Analysis focused on technical flaws, proving the warrant invalid and making the police search unlawful. The state of Ohio's witnesses included the lead officer, who would justify the entry, and the vice squad officer who found the materials. A prosecutor would establish good faith, while experts on community standards and police procedure would support the prosecution's claims. The community standards expert would legally cement the state's obscenity charge. Using tests like the Hicklin standard, the expert would declare the materials unacceptable, aiming to establish undeniable guilt on the underlying crime. The state's top arguments included the serious nature of the crime, the reliability of the evidence, and the pre-Mapp silver platter doctrine, which allowed states to use tainted evidence. They also cited public safety and the need for state sovereignty. Ohio argued that the police search was necessary to maintain public order, and the evidence was in plain view. They maintained the conviction was based on valid state law, emphasizing that the exclusionary rule did not apply to state courts, and police acted in good faith. A community witness would vouch for Mapp's character. This testimony counters the state's effort to morally smear Mapp and helps the jury focus on the critical issue of police misconduct rather than the content of the materials. The prosecutor would establish the state's good faith in filing charges. The argument frames the defense's claims as mere legal technicalities that shouldn't obstruct justice when compelling criminal evidence exists. The lead police officer is the state's anchor witness. They justify the forced entry by detailing the bombing tip, minimize the warrant issue, and argue the search was necessary to find the illegal obscenity. The vice squad officer would describe the obscene materials found in detail. This testimony aims to morally outrage the jury, diverting attention from the unlawful search procedure to the fact that illegal items were discovered. In the district court, the trial judge refused to consider the search's legality. Dalry Mapp was found guilty of possession and sentenced to imprisonment. Her conviction was subsequently affirmed by the Ohio Supreme Court. Mapp appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, challenging Ohio's ruling that allowed illegally obtained evidence. Although the court initially planned to focus on obscenity, oral arguments shifted the core question to incorporating the exclusionary rule. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in favor of Mapp, incorporating the exclusionary rule to the states. The majority opinion ensured constitutional protections were applied uniformly nationwide, while the dissent argued against imposing the federal rule on state courts. In its final ruling, the Supreme Court declared that evidence obtained illegally cannot be used in any American courtroom. This landmark decision applied the Fourth Amendment's exclusionary rule to the states via the 14th Amendment. This concludes our video on Mapp v. Ohio and the origins of the exclusionary rule in state courts.